Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar. In this session, we're going to talk about how to Webify your Delphi Desktop applications using Thinfinity VirtualUI, and why this is the best approach to overcome today's digital transformation challenges. I'm Leo Laurencio, and I'm Cyber Software Sales Manager. And in today's session, I'll be joined by Gustavo Riccardi, Cyber Software CTO and founder, and by Paul Bukotic, our Sales Enablement Specialist. Before we get started, I would like to thank Embarcadero for having us here and also remind you that if you have any questions, there will be a Q&A segment after the presentation. We do have a few interesting topics to cover today, so let's get started. So the reason we are here today is to talk about Delphi desktop applications and Delphi client-server applications. These applications are still playing mission-critical roles in both private and public organizations around the globe. This is happening for multiple reasons. These applications are still completely functional and efficient. The users understand them and like them and are highly trained to use them. And most of them have been running and constantly been improved for over a decade. So to summarize, if nothing will have changed, these applications will be able to do their job forever. But a digital transformation has brought with it new challenges that a desktop application cannot achieve in its current state. Supporting remote access and browser-based access, and basically access from any device at any time, has become a necessity for most organizations to have. Also, if you want to go for a cloud adoption approach, you need to have scalability tools that allows you to scale your user counting up and down according to your business needs. In these new interconnected environments, an application running isolated by itself on a desktop is not enough to do the job anymore. You need to have integrations, for example, with an identity technology partner or with other web applications in the ecosystem. And last but not least, you need to meet with some cultural trends, such as bring your own device or choose your own device. So what options do you have, right, to make your application suitable to meet all these challenges? Well, to keep this presentation short and to the point, I'll assume that you already explored the traditional approaches, such as recoding and traditional virtualization. And then for one or another reason, these approaches didn't meet your project needs, either because your application is too complex to be recoded, or because you got a poor user experience using a traditional virtualization service, or maybe just because both approaches are too expensive. And I'll go ahead and propose a third approach, which is to Webify your existing Delphi desktop or client-server application using our solution, Thinfinity VirtualUI. Thinfinity VirtualUI is a development platform that enables dual platform solutions. So it basically allows your desktop or client-server application to function as a web application. And the best part is that you don't have to do any recoding or major changes to your source code in order to accomplish it. It is intended to provide a migration path from a desktop application to a web solution, and it provides pure HTML5 web access on the end user side. This means that your users won't have to install any plugin or client to access your solution. It is intended to reduce the technology gap between your application and the newer technologies and platforms by providing cloud compatibility with any public, private, or hybrid cloud, and integration with other web resources, such as authentication methods or web components. Thinfinity VirtualUI is an adaptable solution that can be used with all types of applications and in every kind of scenarios, from small implementations to massive deployments with thousands of concurrent users. It doesn't matter if your application is really graphic intensive or if it has a really complex logic in the backend, Thinfinity VirtualUI can handle it. So either if you have an accounting solution or a CRM or a SCADA, you can use Thinfinity VirtualUI to make it available on the web. And as I mentioned before, the best part is that you don't have to do any recoding. You just need to add a single line of code to your source code to make it work. So in the next section of this webinar, My colleague Paul will teach you how to Webify your Delphi desktop application by just adding a single line of code to your source code.
Thanks, Leo, and hi everyone. In this section, I'll show you how to publish your desktop application with Thinfinity VirtualUI, adding just a single line of code to your Delphi project. This is a 2012 R2 Windows Server environment, and I have downloaded Thinfinity VirtualUI from cyblesoft.com. This is how you can install it. You click on this icon and select Yes to allow the program to make changes to the computer. This is the welcome window. We are going to select Next, and we will accept the terms in the license agreement. Now we have the VirtualUI Server Manager and the development environment. We are going to install both in this machine, but you can install the Server Manager in your server machine and the development environment in the developer machine, respectively, of course. For testing purposes, I'm going to install both right here. We are going to select Standard Mode. And this is the window where you can select the destination folder. I'm going to select the default one. We're going to click Install, and it takes a few seconds. Okay, it has been installed. Now I'm going to open the VirtualUI Server Manager, and I'll show you how to activate it. We're going to select Yes again in this window. So I'm going to click on Activate Serial Number Online, and I'm going to use my email address and my serial number. And I have my serial number right here. Okay, and that's it. Now it's activated. This is a VirtualUI General tab. We have communication settings here. Now let's see how it works. I will open Red Studio to create a Hello World application, and then we will publish it on the web with VirtualUI. I'll just do this very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to add a button, and I'll change its caption. And I'm going to add this label as well, but I will delete its caption this time. Let's see the procedure. So when clicking on the button, the application will show the message. I'm going to save the unit and the project too. So here we have the application. It looks good. Now I'm going to add this single line to Webify the application. We will try it in debug mode first, and then we will publish it on the web. So right button click and select View Source. And in the uses list, we have to add this line, which is virtualui_. auto run. Now we can build the application now, and let's see what happens next. What we get is a Delphi Desktop application built by Red Studio in the exact same application enabled on your browser. We have verified that the application works correctly using a web browser, and now I will publish it on the web. It is so very simple. I will open the VirtualUI Server Manager, and I will select the Application tab, and I'm going to click on Add. On the General tab, click on Open, and I will look for the exe file. I will select it and click Open again. You can choose the icon that your users will see. Okay. We will apply the changes and we will close the window too. Now I'm going to open a new browser window. This time we'll see from the end user's perspective. I will enter the same IP address, but I'll use the port 6580 on which VirtualUI listens for production purposes. Here is the VirtualUI landing page, and this is the icon that we have selected previously. So let's go ahead and make click on it. Alright, so we got our application published on the web by using Thinfinity VirtualUI. Let's go deeper with how VirtualUI works with your Delphi application. To do this, we have Zune Portfolio. It is a nice Delphi open source application that I have downloaded from sourceforge.com, and it computes transactions and investments that we make in the stock market. It has an elaborated logic and many windows that open other windows. We will publish Zune Portfolio on the web so users can take a look at it from anywhere on any device they want. I have VirtualUI installed with all the options by default, so we can settle this right now. Right button click on the project's name and select View Source. In the uses list, I'm going to add again VirtualUI_autorun. This will add a VirtualUI unit which has a reference to the VirtualUI SDK library. Now I'm going to save the changes I made. Now I will build the project. You will see this VirtualUI dialog that shows up. It says that your application will open on a browser, and you can check this box if you don't want to see this message again. Here it is the application on debug mode, and it is published in the local machine by using the port 6080. This is a preview of how the end user will see the application. Now look at the options. We have the same start options. Everything looks fine. I have added the code, and we checked the application is okay from the development side. So I'm going to open the VirtualUI Server Manager now. You will see in communication settings that VirtualUI listens on the port 6580, that you can change for a different one if you need to. From the Application tab, add your application's exe file by looking for its path and click Open. In this case, I'm going to select the default icon. Once you do that, click OK. So it looks like the Zoom portfolio is ready to be published. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and open the web browser. This time we are going to use the port 6580, which is a production port. Everything is set now, and I am in the end user site in the VirtualUI landing page. The application is published and ready to be used. It can be accessed by all the users you need through any HTML5 compatible browser. There is something more I would like to show you. Now that we all know how to publish an application on the web, let's see how to take advantage of the VirtualUI's procedures to boost the end-user experience with your Delphi already published on the web application. So we are going to see this ready-to-go application that I have to show you the procedures and the properties that you can customize to honor the user experience of your application, like Leo said. And then once we publish the application with VirtualUI, we're going to take a look at the code. So we'll see what is going on in the code when the user clicks on the checkbox or in a button that we have already coded. I'm opening the VirtualUI Server Manager to look for the exe file of this application. We have the applications published. We'll stop in the application in a minute. Like I said, this is a very important application. I strongly recommend you to pay attention because these methods and properties will allow you to take ownership of the user experience and how the user is going to interact with your Delphi application. So we have the Save File button and the Open File button. The Save File button has the Save dialog and the Open button has an Open dialog. We have 4 checkboxes. They are going to act on the properties. And then we have the procedures. We'll see how to download, how to print, and how to upload a file using your application with Thinfinity VirtualUI. If I click on the Save dialog, I will automatically get the browser's dialog since I'm working with the application through a browser. Look what happens with the standard dialogs box checked. We see the operative system's standard dialog. Easily we could add image filters, text filters, and so on. This is what we mean when we say that you can customize the experience with these tools. This is interesting too. We can add the same filters to the browser's dialog. And as you can see, you can also combine filters. Take profit of the VirtualUI's essential procedures like the download procedure. In this case, we will download the application's exe file. The application itself downloaded by adding a VirtualUI download method. They're all going to be downloaded to my desktop because that's I have set in my browser. Also available to download images, pictures, text files. And you may be asking yourself, what about PDF files? So once VirtualUI is installed, it says the VirtualUI printer by default. So when the application passes a file to print without the destination selected by the user, the printer gets the file and prints it for you. Now this is a very fancy window we have designed to print the PDF. It has all the features that a PDF viewer would have, like zoom in, zoom out. You can also send the file to be printed in the Google Cloud if you have an account with them, or you can select direct print, so the usual dialog will come up, and you can select any of the options to print the files if you want copies, or if you want a different side of the paper. So you can take advantage of these two. And we also have this button just to show you what I told you before about the printer. This button has a self-print, so it's going to print the entire form, and it is not like the other button, because with the other button we had a PDF file. This one takes a caption of the form, and as you can see, it sends it to the VirtualUI printer. Last procedure, it is about how to upload a file from the remote machine. This time I will upload this file to the projects folder, and I passed the directory dynamically, and I will show it to you right away. Now a quick overview of the procedures. Let's take a look at the virtualui.upload procedure. It's very easy to implement. You just have to remember to add the VirtualUI SDK library, and I'll show you how to. And it's very simple. You just send or pass the destination folder or directory as a white string, and that will be it. The file will be uploaded wherever you want. The most important thing is you can do this in no time. It is very simple. And then we have virtualui.standard dialogs, and that's a property where you can assign a value. That could be, it's a Boolean variable. You can assign true or false. That depends on what you want to show to the user, the browser's dialog or the operative system dialog, and that depends besides on what we do in the checkbox, in this case for this application. And then we have the filters here for the open and the save dialog as well. And we have for image filters, well, we saw it, but we have all file extension filters too. This is how it works. It's very easy. And we have the self-print here that we have used, the example we saw to explain how the VirtualUI printers work. If you haven't set a default printer after you have installed the VirtualUI development environment, it will install the VirtualUI printer as default for you. So every time you print something, you will see that on the PDF viewer that we have saw previously as well too. And here it is how the open file dialog works. We are using the virtualui.standard dialogs property, and then it opens like any other open dialog. It's very easy, as you see. And here it is a VirtualUI SDK library in order to be able to use the procedures for the VirtualUI unit. To finish today's demonstration, I guide you through the VirtualUI JS Arrow integration. JS Arrow is for JavaScript Remote Object. So JS Arrow is a framework to combine the application with native web resources or multimedia resources. You may also need to adequate how specialized data is viewed by the user. You might be familiarized with this application. To those who are not, this is FishFacts. This is a demo application that we'll have on cyblesoft.com. You can come to take a look at it whenever you want. You're more than welcome. And how does JS Arrow work? It enables the creation of objects in your application that can be replicated on the browser as native JavaScript objects. So every pair of objects keeps sync with each other on both ends of the communication and behaves as the same entity. So I stopped using the arrows on my keyboard to navigate the application, and I'm going to use now these arrows up here. These are remote objects we have implemented with JavaScript, and look how it goes. It's all right. You can navigate with them. And here, when we implement the full web integration, we can see what is shown on a search engine. So these images here and the arrows up here have been created on the application and have been sent to the browser. So it has a lot of potential, and we are very glad we can share it to you. This was a quick demonstration on how JSRO works. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for your time, and Leo will continue with the presentation.
Thanks, Paul, for that useful demonstration. So now that you've seen how easy it is to Webify your Delphi desktop application, let me mention that Thinfinity VirtualUI works with pretty much every Windows-based application. This includes the most popular Delphi frameworks like BCL and FireMonkey. It also works with every version of RadStudio, from the earliest versions to the recently launched 10.4 Sydney. In terms of software architecture, Thinfinity VirtualUI supports pretty much every traditional architecture. It works with desktop applications, client-server applications, multiple module applications, and it supports external database integrations like SQL or MySQL. You can integrate Thinfinity VirtualUI with any 32 or 64-bit application. Even more, if you have a 32-bit application running under VirtualUI, you can deploy it on any modern Windows server, even Windows Server 2019. And now let's take a quick look on how a Thinfinity VirtualUI server does its magic from the end user perspective. Each time the end user clicks on the URL on its web browser, it generates a request. This request is taken by the web server, which creates an HTTP or HTTPS WebSocket connection. Then the user gets served with the Thinfinity homepage, and once he clicks on the application icon, the broker will generate a virtualized instance of the application running on the backend server. Then the user gets served with this application. This process occurs automatically and on demand and in a matter of milliseconds, which means each time one of your end users clicks on the URL, it will get served with an isolated virtualized instance of the application running on the backend server. You can host multiple users running different instances of your application on the same server, and each one will have access to its own resources, exactly like when you serve a native web application. The number of concurrent users that you can host on a single server is entirely related to the size and resource consumption of your application. Well, let's say you have a large environment, right? One thing is to have 3,000 concurrent users spread across multiple workstations, and another is to have a centralized deployment. Thinfinity VirtualUI also has a solution for that. Each component of the Thinfinity VirtualUI architecture can be installed on separate servers, creating a load balancing scenario. You can have multiple servers running the backend applications, and also multiple brokers generating the connections on demand. Each one of these brokers will listen to each other and will create the resource on the less busy backend server. And you can also have multiple web servers to receive every incoming connections. Last but not least, you can create redundancy on each potential point of failure. This means that if one server goes down, the workload will get automatically redirected to the next available server. One thing that is worth to mention is that security is really important in this type of architectures. This is why when you deploy Thinfinity VirtualUI in a load balancing scenario like this, the only inbound port that you need to open is the HTTPS port on your gateway machine. Our gateway acts as a reverse gateway, and this means that the broker connects to it and not the other way around. So on the backend architecture, you don't have to open any inbound port, only a couple of outbound ports to generate the connections. And of course, you can handle all those settings from the Thinfinity VirtualUI Manager. This architecture flexibility transformed Thinfinity VirtualUI in a suitable solution, not only for simple scenarios, but also for really large deployments. So now that we've covered architecture and scalability, at least the basics of it, because this is a really wide topic, so we cannot cover everything today, let's move to integrations. Something I didn't mention before is that Thinfinity VirtualUI Server Manager works perfectly on any Windows 10 machine. This is very useful for testing purposes, but also because if you have a small deployment, you can serve your application to multiple concurrent users and just use a Windows 10 machine as a server. This particular instance is running on my local PC. As you will see, this is my local IP, and this is the port that Thinfinity VirtualUI lists by default when you are using an HTTP connection. This landing page that you guys are seeing is the Thinfinity VirtualUI login page, and this one and every other landing page of Thinfinity can be customized with your own company identity and logos, right? As I mentioned before, Thinfinity VirtualUI will not only show you your application on the web, it will make it an active part of any modern ecosystem. And a secure login experience is a key part of this type of implementations. So by default, your users will be able to log in with their Windows account, right? These Windows users can also be a part of any existent Active Directory. A second option that you have is to use OAuth to create a sign-in experience using any identity platform in the market, such as Google, LinkedIn, or Facebook. If you want to take security to the next level and add an extra layer of security, you can create two-factor or multi-factor authentication experiences by integrating with any identity administration technology partner, such as Duo or Okta. And you can also use protocols as Radius or SAML to authenticate your application with pretty much any other web app that supports them. Last but not least, you can also compile your own DLL and authenticate your application against your own SQL database. In this case, I will just log in using my Windows account. I already have the password saved. And what you're seeing now is the Thinfinity VirtualUI landing page. Here, your user will be able to see all the applications and resources that you prepared for them. In this case, I just have a small Delphi demo application that we use for testing purposes. So let's see a real-life example. Let me just go to another server where we host and test some of our customers' applications. And the application I want to show you is called TimePlan, and it's developed by TimePlan Software, which is an ISP in Denmark. They provide an ERP that is used for manage and control large workforces. They provide services to all type of organizations, such as retail stores, supermarkets, fun parks, and all type of events as well. I'm not an expert in this application, and we are also going to do a couple of more videos to explore the success cases of these customers. So the purpose of this demo is just to show you how the application looks like in the web, virtualized with Thinfinity VirtualUI. So this is a simple demo install. So I need to log in again to the application, right? But if you like to, you can just pass the same set of credentials to your application and create a more kind of like a single sign-on experience. Once I log in, you'll see that the application just loaded smoothly. As I mentioned before, this is a heavyweight ERP to manage large workforces. So this implies that it will be used by supervisors and managers across the organizations. So therefore, a poor performance is not something that you can afford in this type of applications. I'm not an expert on this application, as I said before, but you have a grid where you can graphically create the shifts for each one of the employees. And on the left side, you have the employee name by rows. And on the right side, as you can see, you can just scroll down and scroll up, and it will do it kind of like smoothly. As you can see, when you pass your mouse pointer over each employee, you get the detail of the department where it's working or the position. And on the right side, where you have the working hours and the shift, you also have a tooltip that loads when you put your mouse pointer over the row. It will give you more details about which weeks the guy is working. As you can see, even if I move my pointer really fast, the tooltips just load seamlessly. On the bottom, you have a small graphic that shows you how cover or how load is your schedule, right? So if you create another one, you will see reflected here automatically. There is another module that allows you to cross-check the schedules across multiple units in your company or multiple facilities like different supermarkets or those type of things. And it also has a graphic interface that allows you to create or compare working hours between employees. And same thing with the tooltips. As you can see, this runs smoothly. So if this needs to be used by a supervisor in a really fast way, I mean, they won't have any delays or problems like that. It also includes a calendar that will show you a view of your holidays, I think. The important part is that you can navigate these modules seamlessly without any delay. Also on the setting tab, you'll see that your combo boxes will just be deployed fast and without any drawing issues. Again, as this is a mission critical application, what's most important for it is that the performance is reliable and smooth. And I think you can see here that that part is pretty well accomplished by Thinfinity VirtualUI. Now let's go and check another application. This application is called ECIP, and it was developed by Mr. Paul Thornton and Mr. Clive Norris of Krypton Computers. This application is intended to organize the IPs and devices, or kind of like to provide a logic overview of large networks across like wide organizations. They work with large enterprises and also with telcos. They are one of the main providers in the UK, but also they have presence in over 27 countries around the globe with this solution. This particular instance that I'm accessing is hosted on a GCP virtual machine and is hosted in the UK. As you can see, ECIP provides, as I mentioned before, a logic overview of your network. You have on the left side this tree structure where you can see the IP. And when you choose each one of the items, you can see the descriptions. And I think you can go up to 64 levels of layers, right, on the architecture. So you can organize your architecture by country like this on different folders and subfolders, or you can organize it by data center like here. I'm not an expert on this application either. We can later do another video like going deeper on the use case as well. But the important part for me now is that you can see that this tree is pretty populated and that it runs smoothly on a web browser. They didn't have to change any of the backend architecture in order to keep their application functioning and to make it web compatible. So for what I know, they also have a small bot that you can install on your data center backend architecture. And after you do a research, it will provide you a grid like this with the findings. I mean, all the IPs that you have in your network, and you can complete the the information with these combo boxes here. As you can see, all the combo boxes just load seamlessly without any major problem. The same here, if you want to add a new subnet, you can just click here and you will have a pop-up view where you can just populate the information where you want to add that subnet, on which network or on which layer. You can also navigate the toolbar seamlessly. As you can see, it loads in a really fast and easy way. And what else? You have here a grid view. You can upload some files to the application if you want to. Well, and I guess this is a really quick overview of how the application looks like and how fast it runs under VirtualUI. Well, with this last example, we've reached the end of this presentation. I hope you guys enjoy it. This was just a quick overview on the Thinfinity VirtualUI capabilities and what you can accomplish using our solution. Now let's go to the Q&A segment where we can reply any of your questions. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that great presentation. There were a ton of questions here. I tried keeping up. I wasn't able to. We have Gustavo, Paul, Leonardo on the line here, and it doesn't look like they're able to keep up with all of them either. I will point out, if someone has a specific question, is there a way they can follow up for additional information or after this webinar if we're not able to get at their question? Gustavo?
Sorry?
If somebody has a question and we're not able to answer it here on the webinar today, is there a way they can follow up with support or with you or somebody else to get an answer?
Yes, I will ask you, everyone that has any additional information or maybe some information question and they are here a little bit difficult to respond, they can send us an email to support at silosoft.com or sales at silosoft.com, and Leo will help you with any issue or thing that you have with the purchase or any support questions, maybe coding or anything, any question you may have.
Okay, great. So instead of me trying to moderate these, were there any things here that you wanted to follow up with or questions that were asked that you weren't able to get answered that you would like to elaborate on? And I will forward you a list of all the questions afterwards as well so that you can follow up with them.
Will be like a question and email so we can reply to the particular person?
Yes.
Okay. Lovely.
Yeah,
I don't know. Where should we start? Some of them are really complex questions. So I don't know if you have any particular one that you had identified or. So I read something here about integration with third-party applications like Word or Office. So you can, in order to see the applications on the screen, you need to be able to compile them right with our DLL. But if you need to export applications, for example, let's say you need to export a file like a Word report or an Office sheet, you can do it and download it directly. So you just need to replace the method and the way your application handles that. And if you want to actually be able to stream the Word file or the Office file on the browser, you can use a new method that we added that is supporting third-party applications. And so if you need more information about that, please, again, send me an email to sales@silosoft.com and we can share some more documentation about that.
Okay, I went ahead and added the support and sales email addresses in the chat log there for anybody that wants to follow up.
Yes, and sales.
Yeah. There was a few questions around like scalability. is that limited basically on server hardware at that point if someone wants to get like thousands and thousands of users, or how does that roll out?
It is fully related to your application characteristics, right?
Yeah.
So if your application is heavyweight, you will need more computing power to run multiple instances of that application on a server, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we added the load balancing capabilities. So even if your application is really heavyweight and you cannot run many instances on a single server, you can add multiple servers and there is no limit on that. You can have 1,000 brokers, right, and run thousands of users of that application on multiple servers. And if your application is lightweight, well, you will be able to run many more instances of that application on a single server, right? It's exactly like what you do on workstations. It's just that you need to calculate what you're doing on single workstations and multiply that and put it on a single server or centralized deployment.
So there are a few questions here on pricing and such. There more information on the website or via email is probably the best way to go for that. How does this compare to some solutions that maybe come from the outside of the application that are purely virtualizing without requiring any integration into the application itself?
Well,
like desktop or something like that.
Yeah, well, to start, I mean, we don't build on top of RDP, right? So that's one less layer that you need to have in your architecture. Sure. And in terms of the integration, I mean, the VirtualUI allows to have a more granular solution, right? And extend with external resources and other web applications, right? And also it gives you a more native user experience. And so it's a completely different approach than if you use RDP. And also with RDP, you're always encapsulating your application running on a server. I mean, it's kind of like a black box, right? And Windows executed. Here is your application running on the server. So the possibilities, I mean, if you're a developer, are way more.
Does it open up the ability, for example, for the application to open a URL in a new tab or a new window or something like that and spawn like a new web page, for example?
Yeah, there you can have both. I mean, you can have a pop-up window like I show on the demo on the same tab, or you can open a link to another tab on the same browser. You can even interact with multiple modules of your application using an open link dialog method and open multiple tabs of or multiple parts of the application on different tabs. Or, I mean, it's up to you. You can handle the user experience as you want. It's pretty flexible there.
Yeah, there are several ways to integrate with web resources. You can, as you said, Leo, you can integrate with just linking to another page, but also you can mix the browser web page with the application on the same page. And also you can embed, for example, in a frame, another page from an external website or an internal website. There are many possibilities.
Okay, here's a couple interesting questions here about integrations. If you have an existing web application that is a standard web application and somebody interacts with a particular part of that application, could it pop up a Delphi form via Thinfinity? And then when the user closes that, it will return to the HTML application?
Yes, exactly. This is one type of integration you can do. You can make this integration by including the remote Delphi application inside of your web application. And you can even send commands between your web application and the Delphi application using our tools, our SDK. Okay,
great. So that would be an example of the advantage of using Thinfinity over one of the ones that comes from the outside that doesn't require so you have the better integration.
Yeah, exactly.
What about if your application spawns another application using like shell execute or something like that? How is that handled?
Well, in that case, there is some restrictions because you can spawn other applications, but these applications have to be under control of VirtualUI. So you can't show an application that is not under VirtualUI's control. Okay, like Excel.
So to summarize, I mean, if your application if you have multiple applications, you can use the shell execute and the allow execute to show them all, right? To launch one from the other, that's not a problem. But if you want to launch a third-party application, there is a limitation there because you need to, again, it needs to be compiled with our DLL in order to work.
Okay, so if I was to just launch a Notepad from Windows, that wouldn't work. But if I was to launch my other program that I wrote, then that could work just fine.
Exactly, at least with the standard version, right? Then we have a new version that also supports third-party applications, but you need to integrate with also remote desktop services. So if you want an Excel, now you can do it, but you need to also integrate a bit with remote desktop services. So it's not a limitation. If it's a must for you to have, I mean, you can definitely use it, right? But with the standard VirtualUI that doesn't need any other licensing than just VirtualUI, you cannot.
Okay. What about how do you deploy updates if you have a new version of your application? How do you make sure it gets out to everybody as quickly as possible?
Well, we do have regular releases, and we publish them on the website.
Well, I mean, if I've developed my application with VirtualUI, how do I get my updated application out to my users?
Oh, you just need to update the application on the server, and that's it. And it's the same with the VirtualUI application.
So does it anyone to update VirtualUI's DLLs or application, because we understand that it's something critical usually. So we don't have an auto update, for example, but we just gave the option to the developer or the user to update their server software with our new versions if they need it.
Yeah.
Now,
if I have also most of our customers just have a dev environment and then just deploy it to production, right? So once you're ready, you just move everything. But it's pretty straightforward.
Let's say I have an application in production and I have users that are on the application for like long periods of time, and I want to roll out an update. Does it kick everybody out and make them update immediately, or do they get updated next time they reconnect, or how does that rollout happen to my users from me?
For the update, you need to be on off time, right? Everyone needs to be out of the system.
Okay, so you would have to shut everybody down.
Sorry, Gustavo.
Yeah. You need to have some uptime to replace the files and to get up again.
Yeah. Just in case it's not clear enough, your application will continue to behave exactly like you're doing it right now, right? So it will be the same update process, just that you will also have the VirtualUI server in that same server, right? But
so
instead of doing
down the
Sorry.
I was going to say, so I'd have to stop my VirtualUI server. I would deploy the update and then restart the VirtualUI server.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I can have like some sort of mechanism in place.
Just the services, right? It's not like you need to reset the whole thing.
Right.
But so instead of having, sorry, I interrupt you, Jim. But instead of having to upgrade every single workstation, you will just update one, right? But it will be the same process.
Yeah. Is Windows 10 a minimum requirement, or if the dev machine is still running XP, for example, will that work on there?
No, it won't work. It works with Windows 8.1 and up.
Okay. Yeah.
Usually, Windows 10 is the recommended.
Yeah. Windows XP is end of life, Chris. So upgrade. I talk to people from time to time that are still using it. I know, but it's hard to support all the versions of Windows.
Yeah. So no, you need to start from 8.1. I mean, the main things that the main reason is because of the web part, right? So it needs to be compliant with the newer versions.
Yeah. So what happens if a user loses connectivity? For example, if they're on like a data, like a data connection, a wireless connection, and they lose connectivity while they're using the application, does the application like buffer for a minute, or does it just crash? What happens?
There is you can configure a timeout for the application to get to terminate if the connection is, for example, if you close your tab or you close your browser, the application should go down some moment, maybe 10 seconds later or something like that. But you can configure that so you can maybe refresh or get some reconnection issue or something like that, and recover and get you still connect to the same instance of the application, the same place where you were at.
Okay. And I guess in that same vein, there's a few questions. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. All the parameters for the connection go stores in a cookie in the browser, right? That's the way to do it. It's kind of like a web application.
Okay, so it knows how to reconnect. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a few questions here about potentially being able to hot update an application while not having to shut everybody down, or if you can like rename an application and put it on so that people then reconnect and get the new version, or stuff along those lines without having to shut it all down. Is there any kind of possibilities around that?
Well, we have users that it needs to have like services 24/7, and what they have is a second version, kind of like a redundancy of the architecture. Yeah. They point all the users to that server and update one server and then move it again. I mean, from the gateway, you can manage where your users are going, right? So you can, the backend resource can be divided.
If there is the end user application that you want to replace, you can add it, maybe, and add another link to this new application and point the user to the new application. I don't know, it's something that we can excuse in particular, but it's something that you have to do by yourself.
Yeah, but there is several options to do it. I mean, you can manage it in multiple ways.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Alfonso's saying we have a Delphi app that uses a Wacom tablet with pencil to capture signature and cryptographic token with a digital certificate to perform signature of documents. Are these devices are USB? Is it possible to access these devices if they're connected USB to the client machine, I guess?
Is a USB connected to the tablet?
So I believe the USB tablet is connected to the machine. So, for example, if I were deploying my application through VirtualUI to a remote computer, and that remote computer had the tablet connected to it, can my application access that external hardware on that remote computer?
Okay, yeah, that's not supported yet, but we are on our way to do it. You need to do it like using a virtual channel. That will be available within the next version.
Okay, great.
Yeah, some hardware can do, like if you have a webcam or keyboards or even card readers, those are already supported, right? There is your USB redirection there. But the ones that are more external, like hard drives and those stuff, and there is a browser policy that intends to do that. I mean, it's not related to virtual UI capabilities, but mostly related to the browser security, right? So, but we are on our way.
We already have a beta version of printing on ticket printing, for example, or printers that are located on the browser side. So
also labels.
Yes.
So
it's something we are working on.
Paul, it looks like you're answering questions, but maybe not hitting send. Just looking through the question log here, I see your name next to some, but there's no answer. So you might need to hit send on those. Or were you just saying that you wanted to answer those?
Yeah, yes, I'm trying to send the questions. I see the answers. I see them in like purple color.
Yeah, so there's a send button down at the bottom. You have to hit send that sends it out to everybody.
Great. I think it's this one. Yeah, I'm on it. Thanks for
Got
that.
it. Okay. Yep. Yeah, sometimes the user interface is on here, so always clear what's going on. So there's a lot of great excitement here. I can see a lot of people that are really excited about this and want to know where to start, what's next. Beyond contacting sales at Cybersoft, I see you have a live demo and a free trial on the website people can take advantage of. Is there a, you talk about the different editions. What edition is the one people will probably want to start with?
No, I mean, you can start directly with the standard that is public right now. So basically, we have two different type of licenses, but when you do download the trial, it goes like all in one, right? So you can just download the 30 days trial, and you will get a form to request a fully functional 30 days trials with unlimited users, and also for the dev part of VirtualUI. So you can test both. And in this case, I guess most of the audience is Delphi developers. So my recommendation also is go to the blog, and there is a nice tutorial there that if you just search for Delphi, it's a step-by-step tutorial on how to compile a Delphi application. It's a BLC application. And yeah, most of the resources are there in the blog. And also, if you go to the under VirtualUI, you have tutorials.
Is this at the running a Delphi application in the cloud for a web browser?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you go there, you will get there the link to download a code example on how to set up your line of code right in your project. You can also test that one. I mean, if you download it and you publish it, you can test it to see that it's working.
So now I was looking here at the on the product page here. There's Virtual Server, Developer Pro. Is Developer Pro, if I was to go buy this today, is that enough for me to get started?
Yeah, with the Developer Pro, you get all the developer functionalities, including JSRO, right, and all the web components and all the advanced features. And also you get one concurrent user to test on that machine. So if you install the server manager on that dev machine, you get one external concurrent user, right? They will both managers listen to different ports. So that's the idea. And then
so the server license is for user deployment. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're ready to deploy, you just need to purchase your server licenses. You can also do your tests during trials. I mean, with your trial license, you can test a production server without any problems. It's the same functionalities. There is no restriction. And yeah, the pricing is based on concurrency. So what you need to calculate is the peak of concurrency that you will have on a particular server or a particular environment, and that's how many VirtualUI licenses you need to purchase for that customer.
Okay, makes sense. And I saw some people asking about upper ends, and there was a comment that you had some users with some people that had 5,000 plus. So if they need that, they just need to contact you for.
Yeah, they need a custom quote. Yeah. Basically, So I mean that scale keeps getting kind of like more aggressive as more as you purchase. So if you have 5,000, send me an email and you'll get a better pricing than that, of course.
Okay. If there's multiple, if one developer has two computers, do they need two licenses for each computer, or license for each computer from the Developer Pro license, or is that?
Yeah, the Developer Pro is by seat. Yeah, by the seat. Yeah.
So it's not by the user, it's by the seat.
Yeah, exactly. The Developer Pro is by the seat. And also one quick comment. I mean, if you happen to have a company, right, and you have multiple developers, this is really common. You only need the developer license for the developers that are going to work and actually debug VirtualUI, right? They like debug your application using the dev manager. It's not like you need it for your whole team. So if you have, I don't know, 20 developers, but only 2 of them are working with the actual final part of publishing this, you only need 2, right?
Okay, so the pro license is for the people that are running. Basically, they're doing that portion, running it in tests, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, because you can do all the other changes. I mean, even if you're going to change, I don't know, the GUI because you want to make it more web friendly, or if you want to add the methods, everything else, you can just add it to the code and compile it using the Rust Studio and put it in the server. And it's not like you need the dev portion for that. But
all right,
the dev portion is intended so you can debug live, right? So you will need one at least to see how it behaves. It will definitely ease things up in terms of your development process.
That makes sense. So if I have a team of 100 developers, and just because I have the code in my source code base and they're all getting it checked out, as long as they're not actually running, don't need to run the test environment, they don't need the license. Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But they can all play with the code and modify it and put it on the server, and it will run, of course, on the VirtualUI.
Okay. Yeah. There's a few questions here about SSL. That's completely handled on the web server, or is there any specific concerns around that with deployment?
No, VirtualUI comes with its own web server. I mean, and you can apply your own certificate, and it's all handled on the manager. So it's really straightforward as well.
So if someone's using Let's Encrypt with auto renew, does that work with the server?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, we support pretty much everything that IIS support. So right now we are pretty.
It's currently using the HTTP SYS driver, so it's more like very similar to IIS.
Great. So I'm seeing we're past time here, and I see people are starting to drop off. I apologize if we're not able to get to everybody's questions. Oh, one more question here about third-party components. If somebody's using like DevExpress or TMS or some other third-party components, does that all work with this, or do they need to only use certain components?
DevExpress is fully support, and TMS, I guess, as well, right?
Yeah. There's no restriction. You can use any third-party component.
Yeah, as long as there are components that then you put on your CMX.c file, yeah, it's covered.
Okay. I lost the question I was going to ask you. I was going to point out, I've talked to some of our customers that of fellow Delphi developers that have big projects that are also using it with Thinfinity, and they really enjoy it as well. I know a few people here that have commented that they've been using your product for a while and that they enjoy it as well. So a lot of good kudos and a lot of excitement, which is always a great thing to see. So maybe we'll need to do another follow-up webinar on this. It looks like there's definitely a lot of interest in this topic.
Yep. Yeah, of course, we are more than available for that. And we've discussed maybe to do some also use cases, because it's something that I also see on the questions, that they want to see like real life applications, something like that. So even the small preview that I did before, I can even go deeper on larger applications, or that's something that usually people get interested about, or they concerned because they have critical applications or really massive applications and they want to be sure it will run. And so we can confirm it does, right?
Yeah.
So that's on the contact form. You can send a form with any questions that you could have as well. Or if you're in our website right now, guys, you can also use the chat tool and chat with one of our agents live, whatever goes better for you. The same if you want to give us a call, we are here 8 to 5 Eastern time.
Fantastic. Oh, look, here we go. Here's
yeah, there are all the code examples. That's Delphi. As I mentioned before, you can also have C++. But it works with pretty much every Windows language.
Oh, and this is C++ Builder. Okay, great.
Yeah, and we have as well C#, WPF, Xbase.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate. I know we've been working on getting this together for a while now, but glad we're able to finally connect on this and get this going. If you didn't get your questions answered, do go to the website or the email addresses that I put in the chat log and follow up with them, and I will be providing the question log to them as well, so that they can follow up with you via that as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this. Thank you for everybody for attending, and thank you, Gustavo, Leo, and Paul for putting this great product and great presentation together. Oh wait, I see a couple questions here that I wanted to ask. MP3 or audio. If someone has audio in their application, whether it be MP3 or whatever that they want to play, is that go through the browser to the user?
Not right now. Not right now. We
Okay.
don't support sound right now.
Yeah, but you can support mic, like mic from the end user to the application. Yes.
Actually, well, actually, you can do it with some custom development using JSRO. You can send the MP3 to the web browser and play it with a standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Control in the web browser. Yes, we have something similar with video. An example that we are streaming the video to the browser and showing it in the tag video tag of the web browser, HTML5 video. So it's more like you can do the same for MP3 file.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, it's not out of the box, but if you do some coding on your end, it's definitely supported. Yeah.
So a couple people are still asking questions about pricing. Your best bet's going to be the contact sales.
Yeah.
But do you want to go over real quick one more time on the pricing, what they need to understand about that?
Yeah, of course. So for your development stage, right, when you are integrating your application and debugging the application live, and you wanted to have it ready to be deployed, you need to purchase at least one Thinfinity VirtualUI Developer Pro license, right? If your application is really simple and you want to do a POC and whatever, of course, you have your 30 days free trial where you can use all the functionalities and tools without any investment, right? So you just download your trial and you can use it that way. Then after your trial ends, you need to go for the developer license. Yeah, it's quite straightforward. And then once you're ready to deploy, you need to go for the Thinfinity VirtualUI server license. And that is concurrent user base, right? So it has a volume discount scale there. So if you have a project that has one user, I mean, one single person accessing the application using a web browser, it will be $69. And then if you have a project that is 100 users, right? So this means a peak of 100 users. It's not name users. So you could have 500 name users on your deployment, but only 100 of them access the application simultaneously. Then you will pay $62.97 per concurrent user, which it will be around 6K, 6.3K for the whole 100 users deployment, right?
Okay.
And if you have more than that and you want to deploy it all at once, just let me know and I will do a special quote for you. Yep.
So if let's say somebody has 100 users but 10 different applications, if they still have 100 peak users of those 10 applications, is it still the 100 seats that they're buying, or do they need to buy 1,000 seats?
No, the license consumption is measured by browser ID, right? So with their developer license, they can publish as many applications as they want. If they have 100 applications, they can publish them all, right, on the same server, right? Okay. And then the consumption on the production server will be measured by how many users with different browsers access the server simultaneously, right? So if you have 5 users with 5 accessing with 5 different browsers, right, there will be 5 licenses. Those users can open multiple applications on different tabs of the same browser, but still be consuming one single license. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So one more question here on third-party components. Is there, if they have a third-party component or any component they've developed in an application, is there any limitations they need to be aware of about using that within Thinfinity?
Not at the moment. Not that we are aware of, at least.
Okay.
Our recommendation, I mean, mostly for Delphi, is really simple. I mean, you can get it up and running in less than 2 hours. Just if you put that line of code there, you will see how it behaves. And of course, if you have any questions in those terms, I mean, if something comes up, we'll definitely be able to reply all your emails or phone calls or whatever you want.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I apologize if we're not getting to everybody's questions, but we will review this question log and try and set up a follow-up webinar to go into more detail and answer your questions. So thanks again, everybody, and we will talk to you all later. Bye.
Thank you, Jim. Have a very good rest of your week. Hi.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Thank you so much
everyone.
for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.